you are welcome here. No matter your age, your size, the color of your eyes, your hair, your skin, you are welcome here. No matter how you came here, if you came alone or with others, you are welcome here. No matter whom you love or how you speak or whatever your abilities, you are welcome here. Whether you come with laughter in your heart or tears in your eyes, you are welcome here. If you come with an open mind, a loving heart, and willing hands, then you are indeed welcome here.
Good morning. And happy Pride, y'all. Please don't be distracted. The technical team is working furiously to get a very nice compliment to Henry's service organized that we hope is going to be working sometime during the service. So when it's time, hopefully we'll get to see what he's planned. Welcome to the First Unitarian Universalist Church of New Orleans, one of 3 congregations in the greater New Orleans area. The other 2 are Community Church UU in the Lakeview neighborhood and North Shore UU in Macomb. Together, we are the Greater New Orleans Unitarian Universalists, or GNU. This congregation has gathered in love since 1833 to seek wholeness and work for justice in the world. I am Margot Anderson, and my pronouns are she and her. And if you are a visitor, we invite you to raise your hands so we can greet you. If there are any visitors here, welcome. We are a lay-led church charged with the mission to offer joyful, mind-expanding worship services. And on Sunday mornings, we aspire to fulfill that mission by inviting UUA ministers, other religious professionals, and leaders from community organizations working for social justice, as well as our own members, to be voices of hope, courage, and spiritual or intellectual transformation from our pulpit. Providing that voice today is longtime member Henry McCarthy. If you would like to know more about programming for children or families, Katie Gelfman, our Director of Religious Exploration, is the person to ask. The RE classes are on break for the summer, and after the time for all ages, children and youth are welcome to spend the service in the nursery or here at the all ages table in the back of the sanctuary. And thank you to our guest hymn leader this morning, Tina Scott, and to our guest vocalist this morning, Sophia Romano. Okay. Looking forward, I'd like to remind everybody that in 2 weeks, we are going to be streaming on the screen with great success the GA service, which is always just beautiful and wonderful. We're going to be watching it together in time with Unitarian Universalists around the country, and that's sure to be a beautiful service. And after that service, and after that we're going to vote on, so it's going to be a very important meeting, and everyone's participation is requested, knowing that only active members can vote. We'll also have an update on the HVAC and long-term rental prospects. And now I'd like to ask Katie Gelfman to come up with a spotlight announcement.
Good morning, everyone. If you have not heard yet, a sub-team of the board has put together a visioning document based on feedback from y'all and from other sources of who we want to be and how we can live our values and help support our community, our church community, together beyond just building tasks. So it's the more fun, creative aspects of the board work, and there's a lot to do. So we made a prioritized list, and we need help from y'all to bring those things. So if you're interested, we're going to have a very short gathering and write a bit more about the visioning document. There will be a copy of it there, as well as a list of all the things that we're we're trying to focus on right now, and we need some volunteers. So please come and let me entice you to sign up for some stuff. It'll be nice, it'll be sweet, and it'll be very short, 15 minutes. So if you also plan to go to the social justice meeting after or go to lunch, and it won't take up too much of your time, please come join me in the library right after the service for 15 minutes.
Thank you so much, Katie. And now, please rise in body or spirit and join me as we read our call to awareness and amends and then our chalice lighting. You will find the call to awareness and amends either at the QR code or in the back cover of your hymnal. I'll read the plain text if you'll respond with the italicized text. We gather today at a crossroads, a place of many tongues. But we are newcomers to this land.
The native peoples are of this land, the Caddo and the Natchez, the Choctaw, Chitimacha, and Houma, the Sneaker, the Latsu, the Taka, Shak, and more.
Know that we gather
On land that was stolen,
the spoils of colonialism and broken treaties.
forced removal, and genocide.
Acknowledging this history is just the first step.
We must set ourselves to the task of repair.
Where we have harmed,
We seek to heal.
where we have taken,
We seek to give.
where we have disparaged,
We seek to honor.
just as the flame of our chalice, we add life-giving water to earth.
All the land's native roots and the nurture of solidarity.
Only when we strive to make amends, and please remain as you are as we light the chalice of our heritage, and join me in reading the words that you will find in your gray hymnal, number 453. May the light we now kindle inspire us to use our powers, to heal and not to harm, to help and not to hinder, to bless and not to curse, to serve you, Spirit of freedom. And please join us now in our opening hymn, We Are a Gentle Angry People by Holly Muir, number 70 in the gray hymn.
We are gentle angry people, and we are singing, singing for our lives. We are gentle angry people, and we are singing, singing for our lives. We are justice-seeking people, and we are singing, singing for our lives. We are justice-seeking people, and we are singing, singing for our lives. We are young and old together, and we are singing, singing for our lives. We are young and old together, and we are singing, singing for our lives. We are a land of many colors, and we are singing, singing for our lives. We are a land of many colors, and we are singing, singing for our lives. We are gay and straight together, and we are singing, singing for our lives. We are gay and straight together, and we are singing, singing for our lives. We are a gentle, loving people, and we are singing, singing for our lives. We are a gentle, loving people, and we are singing, singing for our lives.
This is not in your program, I'm sorry, but it is exciting and important. So the Traveling Chalice has returned and is seeking a new home. For those of you who don't know, the Traveling Chalice is an opportunity for someone in our congregation to take home one of our faith's most beloved symbols and engage in the hopefully daily spiritual practice of lighting the chalice. In the Traveling Chalice kit is a chalice, and I believe hopefully some stuff to light it in, and also the Traveling Chalice journal, which is the best part of the Traveling Chalice because it has chalice items, the history of the chalice, how to use the chalice, and a sharing section where you get to not only share about your experience, but read about other people's experiences with the chalice from like 5 years ago. Is that how you've been doing it? Something like that? Yeah, that sounds right. So it goes, I mean, I think we're going to need any books soon, actually, but it's such a beautiful way to reconnect with members that have moved away, or get to know people that are still in relation, have been coming for a few months. It's really great way to get a flavor and learn more about what this means, what this church community means to people, about people write about how they came to be here, and the value of this congregation. So I think that I have it, I realize in the part, and I'm not promising that you will, but it is moving, and there's also some cool art in it, which is really fun. So, whoever it is you left to or someone, is there anyone in the room who has not taken it home yet? And especially if you're new to the congregation, I would really encourage you to, if it's your first time visiting, no pressure. But if you've been coming for a couple months and you're interested, I would really encourage you, and you can have it for a few weeks. If not, you want to bring it back next week, you can have it for a few weeks until you're ready to return it. So I would love to get around here, especially if someone hasn't had it yet, and if one like that volunteers, then maybe someone who has. Anyone interested? I have been known to pollen people too, so... Anyone feeling brave? It's from the funny ones. Yay! Please introduce yourself.
My name's Mackenzie, and I've been a member of this church for about a month, so I'm excited to see what this is about.
Yay, thank you, Mackenzie. Enjoy.
Good morning. First, I'd like to thank our tech gurus, Justin Wolf and Cliff Beal, both members of this congregation, who have worked with me to try to create an accessible option today where for those who need or prefer to read text and not just listen to a person, that they would have the advantage of that for the entire service. And maybe it will come about, and if not, I have everything in my printout, so they'll still hear from me. And so I thank you for that. And if I am not talking loud enough or close enough to the mic, just indicate by voice or gesture what I need to do, and I'll try to cooperate. And if you need to remind me, I don't mind repeated reminders until I get on track. I want to express how pleased I am to have this opportunity to share with you one of my passions and joys, which is to learn from and partner with many people with various kinds of disabilities as they work hard to enjoy life with their human rights and dignity recognized and respected, which too often doesn't happen. So let's do the responsive reading. It was going to be shown on the text, so I will have to read it by myself. And it's a poem called All of Us Are Beautiful by Thomas Rhodes. We come in a variety of colors, shapes, and sizes. Some of us grow alone. Some of us are cupped inward, and some of us spread ourselves out wide. Some of us are old and dried and tougher than we appear. Some of us are still in bud. Some of us grow low to the ground, and some of us stretch toward the sun. Some of us feel like weeds sometimes. Some of us carry weeds sometimes. Some of us are prickly sometimes. Some of us smell, and all of us are beautiful. What a bouquet of people we are, we who enter this sacred hour. And now is our time for all ages, and so we usually read a book, and we invite the children to come up in the carpet circles, or children, or people who are young at heart, to come and sit on circles, and if you'd like to do that, that's fine. And so today I thought, I have a friend who has a significant disability, and she has 2 books to her credit. So I invited her to come and talk about being an author and an artist. And she couldn't make it because of a schedule conflict. So she sent me a video that she's in. She's actually in a couple of videos on YouTube. And so I was going to show that video, but instead you get to hear from me about her. Her name is Catherine Clemitis, and she's written 2 books, the first of which is called Looking Up. lived, written, and designed by Catherine Clemitis. And she did this actually as her senior capstone project at Loyola University as a design student, a graphic design student. And so I can even pass these around. And her second book is called Read All About Us, Canine Expressions of Art and Voice. And I mentioned she's a graphic artist and a painter, and she has done these fabulous portraits of dogs. And I've said portraits of pretty dogs has a really unique expression in their eyes and in their face. And so this is her business. She has a business called cacartnola.com, and she sells her 2 books. She sells paintings that she does. She sells jewelry that she makes. And she is a graphic designer who does business cards, and she does programs for the Jazz Fest, etc. So I'll tell you a little bit about her, and I will pass the books around. And develop abnormally. And so she's about maybe 4 feet 2 inches tall, and she gets around in an electric wheelchair. And she does most of her activities lying down. And so she eats and types and paints and rides in a car, because that's the most comfortable position for the requirements of her delicate anatomy, where the bones could break easily. But she is really a fascinating personality. In addition to being a great artist and an author, she and her parents were both veterinarians, and so she grew up with lots of animals around the house. And she still has lots of animals around the house. And so, because she was a person with a significant disability, she couldn't do a lot of things like jump rope and play, different physical games. And so her parents, introduced her to a variety of things, and she responded best to art. And so she started painting when she was 5, and she's still doing it. But her other interesting activity is that she loves live music, and she goes all over the country to listen to live music. She especially likes country music. And so in the video, there are pictures of her backstage with Blake Shelton and dozens of other artists that I don't know the names of because I'm not a big country music follower, but she is. And she also has a guitar that she was given by the band Florida Georgia Line, and they autographed her. And she's very visibly different, and she's always in the front row and just having a great time. And so people respond to her. And so she went to a Rod Stewart concert, and they got to talking, and she has all this memorabilia that people give her. And so she told me that she was a graphic designer. And so he said, well, I'm coming out with an album, so do you want to submit some of your work to be considered? And it's a big competition when they do these things. So she came in second for doing the album cover for Rod Stewart. But she had a great experience with him and met him several times and did all of that. And so I so much enjoy meeting people who have taken a really tough circumstances that they've been delivered, and let's move on with life and make it work, and are fun people to be around. So that's my story with Catherine Clemitis. And now is our time for silent contemplation. If you have a joy or sorrow that you would like to share with our congregation's support team that we call the Caring Circle, take a blank index card from the seat back of any chair, Write a brief note with your name and contact number, if you wish, and place the note in the collection plate that will be passed during the offertory time. Let us now enter into 2 minutes for silent meditation of the prayers of your heart, after which we will sing together Voice Still and Small, and the words are in your order of service.
Voice still and small, deep inside all, I hear you call, singing in dark and rain, sorrow and pain, still you remain, singing, calming my fears, quenching my tears, through all the years, singing.
The title of my talk is An Invitation to Advocacy for Disability Justice, a 50-year retrospective. Just to give you an overview, this is what I will be presenting today. Experiences and relationships from my personal and professional life that have taught me about social justice advocacy and led me to be an ally with the disability community for equity and inclusion. I will be presenting brief biographies of several pioneers in the disability rights and disability pride movements whose perspectives, work, and spirit deserves to be known and advanced. And I will end with some suggestions for your doing advocacy work. To provide a little background context of my journey of learning about the disability experience. As an undergrad, I majored in psychology and chose summer jobs each year in a related setting to give myself hands-on exposure to different areas and client populations within psychology. The third summer of my college years, I worked as a nursing aide in a long-term care facility, which I'll call SJG, for men with physical disabilities. The work was the most demanding and physically exhausting I have ever done. That job was also the most intriguing and interpersonally enriching one I'd ever had, and it started me on a career path that I pursued for the next 46 years. Francis White never went to school, but he was my most memorable teacher about disability. One patient at SJG, Francis White, was unlike any person I'd ever met in many ways. He never went to school because he was truly bedbound due to major congenital deformities of his torso and all four extremities, a condition called arthrogryposis multiplex, that prevented him from adequately breathing if he sat upright in a chair for any extended period of time, or from doing any physical activities of daily living that required his hands or his legs. He also lived in an era when most kids with much milder disabilities were routinely denied regular schooling. He was 40 years older than I, but we became great friends. As I bathed, dressed, and fed him, I listened with fascination as he shared his mind and his life with me, a world of hobbies and relationships far from the single bed that he never left. I wrote letters that he dictated to pen pals he had in several cities around the globe. He learned Italian from listening to opera on public radio. With a sense of humor and an accepting ego, he transcended the physical and social limitations that he had been handed. Today, some disabled folks call such super crip stories inspiration porn. For me, Francis's expansive appreciation of life was so worth my learning from, regardless of the abilities, age, or social position of this person that I looked up to and enjoyed being with. In contrast, I'd like to share two other residents of that same long-term care facility. Another friend was Bobby Long. He was placed there because he had quadriplegia and his family did not have adequate capacity for his care. He was about my age and appreciated that I cared about his isolation there, being the youngest resident by many decades and the only deaf person. Years later, I shared in his delight when he wrote to me about his job at an independent living center and when I visited him in his own apartment, having been able to move out of the long-term care facility. Mr. L was a sharp contrast to Francis and Bobby. He complained often that the staff was slow or inept in providing his care, and that he had no intellectual stimulation there. He told me of being refused enrollment at nearby Harvard University in 1940, when he learned he was disabled and used a power wheelchair. By far, he had the most personal assets and family support of all the men at this facility, but he seemed miserable about his life. I pondered these three men's ways of being and took the only path I was aware of at age 21 for reacting hopefully helpfully. I went to grad school in rehabilitation psychology to learn more about the varied disability experiences I had observed. I had the privilege to learn from many impressive thought leaders and advocates in the disability rights movement through their publications, consultations, legislative lobbying, public education, and other contributions to the movement. I will highlight several of them who have had the most influence on my disability justice awareness and my desire to spread the wisdom and inspiration of their work. I studied and met all of them and worked collaboratively with several of them. I will briefly summarize their place in my pantheon of great mentors and colleagues, and will identify the areas of their contributions that especially piqued my interest. First is Adrian Ash, who lived from 1946 to 2013. Upon graduation from Swarthmore College, a renowned academic powerhouse, she was rejected for every job she applied for and told outright by many employers it was simply because she was blind. She once insisted on staying on site until she was interviewed, having been told that when she walked in for the interview, was told, "Why didn't you tell us you were blind? She's not going to interview you." And the HR manager refused to interview her. And so she said, "Well, I'm going to stay here until you interview me." And at the end of the day, she was ushered out by the security staff, not having been interviewed. She tried to file a job discrimination case, but there was no such federal or state law based on disability. She started lobbying for one and didn't stop until she successfully got the New York Human Rights Law to be amended in 1974 to include disability status. Adrienne is skilled in promoting equity for women and disabled folks through a range of interpersonal approaches. She was a consultant, a therapist, a professor, and an activist. She is also renowned as an expert on the impact of attitudes about disability or bioethical decisions about the value and lives of both the unborn and people with disabilities in physically highly dependent situations. This memorial tribute perfectly captures Adrienne's intellect and personality, and was published in Science magazine. Quote, Ash had an endearing ability to be at once gracious and confrontational, passionate and prickly. She was always open to differing views, but she never compromised her insistence on absolute respect for the lives and perspectives of people with disabilities. She was known for asking probing questions to identify common values and expose disagreements that needed to be hashed out. Close quote. Next is Susan Daniels, who lived from 1948 to 2011. She was an educator, a disability policy innovator, a motivational speaker, and an early adopter of technology. I knew Susan best of the leaders I'm highlighting today. We were work colleagues and close in age, but she was so clever and helpfully frank that I often felt she was my mentor. She certainly was for many people. Starting in the 1970s, she did groundbreaking workshops and authored publications on sexuality and disability for folks with a disability, parents, and various healthcare professionals, many of whom simply avoided the topic due to their discomfort or lack of appropriate training. This excerpt describes one of her major policy achievements. Quote, Susan was both a policy wonk and an activist, and was as comfortable debating scholarly economists as organizing community stakeholders. Perhaps Susan's greatest accomplishment was the Ticket to Work and Work Incentive Improvement Act that was passed in 1999, and that created employment incentives and healthcare provisions for workers with disabilities and removed many of the systemic barriers that forced many individuals with disabilities to choose between health coverage or work. End quote. Susan was unusual and truly endearing because of the balance she demonstrated in her life. She was passionate about both the serious work she pursued and the fun times she created for her colleagues and friends. I used to call her the funtrepreneur. Justin Dott Jr. lived from 1930 to 2002. Born into a wealthy family, Justin got polio as a teenager and later succeeded in the family business. He resigned to devote his life to humanitarian service. He pursued disability rights through varied advocacy in federal government positions, legislative lobbying, and grassroots organizing. He visited all 50 United States at least 5 times to educate citizens and rally them to advocate for passage of the Americans with Disabilities Act, known as the ADA, in 1990. Then he focused his efforts on healthcare reform and economic justice. He and his wife, Yoshiko, mentored many immigrant women in a cooperative living and learning arrangement in their home. He was adept at coalition building, as expressed in this quote that summarizes his mission. Quote, empowerment is when government joins with business, labor, religion, and individual citizens to guarantee every person the tools to govern, to produce, and to live the best life possible for self and for all. Lex Friedan. Lex has a long legacy in disability advocacy, policymaking, and the community living movement. His networking, lobbying, and writing significantly shaped the ADA of 1990 and its 2008 amendments. He was one of the pioneers in the philosophy, policy, and research regarding the independent living movement and continues in that leadership role. Through his own life-threatening experiences, trapped in floods as an electric wheelchair user during hurricanes and power failures, he He began developing expertise in the preparedness, evacuation, and support needs of folks with disabilities in such crises and disasters. Rex is highly experienced in working multilaterally within political and governmental systems, consumer and provider organizations, and international rehabilitation associations. Eileen Heron is the founder and executive director of Akohipri, a collective of disabled self-advocates working on human rights, independent living, vocational training, in their small business called Shikali Ceramics in San Salvador, El Salvador. This multi-talented leader has held several posts in Disabled Peoples International, including chair of the Latin American Women's Committee. She led a unique project in which more than 100 Salvadorans with disabilities were trained and authorized to monitor their 2003 national elections, alongside our former president, Jimmy Carter. Eileen affirms, quote, democracy can only be built with the participation of all. Otherwise, democracy is not genuine, end quote. She wants her epitaph to say, quote, you don't have to walk in order to fly, end quote. Judy Heumann lived from 1947 to 2023. She died in March of this year, and you may have heard about her. She's been on NPR and other media platforms frequently. Because she used a wheelchair, Judy was denied both kindergarten admission and, 17 years later, a teaching job upon college graduation with a degree and a teaching certificate. These and other discriminations fueled Judy's lifelong fight for disability rights. Her parents won the first battle against the school principal, and she was admitted. Judy won the second one by suing the New York City school system until a court decided that they had discriminated against her and had to hire her. In 1970, Judy and some fellow activists in Brooklyn founded Disabled in Action, a civil rights organization committed to ending discrimination against people with all disabilities, and it's still very active today. In 1977, Judy was a leader of 150 disabled people who locked themselves as an act of civil disobedience in the San Francisco Federal Building, and this has been recorded as the longest sit-in protest in U.S. history, successfully demanding the official implementation of the 1974 law. So this is 3 years later, and the law has not been implemented because the regulations have not been written. So they were successful in getting the executive branch to write the regulations and implement the law really fast, like within a week after taking 3 years to avoid doing it. Prohibiting discrimination in federally supported programs. Note this quote from her 2021 memoir called Being Human. Quote, change never happens at the pace we think it should. It happens over years of people joining together, strategizing, sharing, and pulling all the levers they possibly can. Things start to happen, and then suddenly, seemingly out of the blue, something will tip, end quote. There is a fabulous documentary called Crip Camp that came out in 2020 that is a film of one summer at a sleepaway camp for youth with disabilities where Judy was one of the counselors and worked and demonstrated her passion for educating peers about self-determination of disabled people. Ralph Hotchkiss. In 1980, Ralph started working tirelessly to design effective, sustainable wheelchairs that, one, can handle all sorts of rough or otherwise unmanageable terrains, and two, that can be constructed and repaired solely with locally available parts. Nothing has to be imported from abroad. He taught disabled folks in under-resourced countries worldwide how to maintain and repair the rugged wheelchairs and assisted them to turn these skills into income-generating, sustainable small businesses. His innovative rehabilitation engineering work earned him a MacArthur Genius Grant. This enabled him to expand his enterprise by co-founding Whirlwind Wheelchair Incorporated, that now manufactures and/or distributes durably designed wheelchairs in 60 countries. As its website explains, a wheelchair is not just hardware, but a means of self-actualization and social change. Quote, "A functional wheelchair designed for the challenges of its environment is a tool that enhances the rider's ability to participate in family, social, and economic activities, as well as enhances public perception of the capabilities and value of people with disabilities." End quote. Harry Lang. Harry is among the most prolific and well-rounded persons I've known, as exemplified by these diverse interests and accomplishments. He has almost 100 publications, including 15 books, many of them on varied topics that highlight the contemporary and historical contributions of deaf persons, which he is one. Subjects include activists, actors, athletes, entrepreneurs, journalists, scientists, soldiers, teachers, and technologists. His international stature in deaf studies and research on science education has brought him into scholarly activities, interacting with many famous scientists such as Stephen Hawking, Carl Sagan, Linus Pauling, and Isaac Asimov, who he's had the opportunity to be on panels with and interview, etc. Nonetheless, his heart and soul are focused on practical tools for the equitable and effective education of deaf students at all levels and the appreciation of deaf culture. Harry created an American Sign Language online lexicon of technical terms in math and science. He has served as a consultant and content expert for documentary films, museum exhibitions, professional associations, and schools. Still, he is a down-to-earth, witty guy who loves to tell jokes. Peg Mosick. Peg's prolific publication list, 96 journal articles and 25 book chapters, made her well known to many people worldwide. Her topics of interest were wide-ranging: sexuality, spirituality, independent living, assistive technology, and universal health care. She was equally skilled and engaged in various methods of improving life for her disability peers, such as designing rigorous research projects, founding and directing the Independent Living Center in Austin, Texas, joining advocacy demonstrations in the streets, and consulting online. In 1993, Peg founded and served until her death as the executive director of the Center for Research on Women with Disabilities at Baylor College in Houston, Texas, where she directed research and training projects funded by the most respected competitive granting agencies in the U.S. She loved technology and innovative thinking. For example, some of her latest studies were conducted using the metaverse platform Second Life. So here's my suggestions for what you can do. Some strategies for advancing disability justice. My first suggestion is know that as a private citizen, as a member of your workforce and neighborhood community associations in your social network, you can educate your fellow citizens and also policymakers with information that explains how changes that promote disability justice also benefit the common good. For example, universal design, such as having more than one modality for using a touch screens, a ramp, makes tasks easier for everyone to access and use. So, for example, you need a ramp if you use a wheelchair, if you push a baby carriage, or if you deliver heavy loads with a hand truck. Full employment strategies with needed accommodations or supports, for example, being able to work from home. provide for more flexible, successful work environments, and create stronger economies by increasing the tax-paying population, because more people can be employed, because the barriers to their getting to the job or they're using the facilities at the job as opposed to ones that I have at home are able to work. Meaningful social inclusion creates higher morale and more productivity due to less stress from isolation, thereby improving the mental health and quality of life of varied individuals. And the more you increase the quality of life of everyone in the community, the more the community as a whole has a higher quality of life. My second suggestion is that you could work within your own circles of influence to promote inclusion of disability within the acronym BIPOC. BIPOC stands for Black, Indigenous, and People of Color, and it is a term within our current consciousness about diversity and inclusion. The acronym is used for designating groups that, due to historical and persistent discrimination, deserve interventions for attaining social justice. So I'm on this campaign that I think we should add the letter D at the end of BIPOC to make it BIPOC, so it would stand for people who are Black, Indigenous, people of color, or disabled, because they experience some of the historical and current long-term discrimination systemically. Discrimination of a different flavor, but it still is preventing them from employment, education, housing, etc. And finally, I'll end you with a little lagniappe. There are some personal benefits of being an ally to the disability community that you might keep in mind. Living with a disability is an inevitable part of the life cycle for most people. Here are some useful personal life lessons that non-disabled folks can learn as an ally through their interaction and observations by doing collaborative advocacy work on disability issues and engaging in ongoing, frank, personal reflection on that experience. Seeing and reflecting on disabled folks' agency and resilience in combating the barriers of disability discrimination can help us in understanding our own potential for exposing and disproving one's unproductive assumptions about disability and the self-implications. Because all of that baggage that we have as attitudes about any group, if we become disabled, we have those internalized and we're going to become part of our self-concept. And so hopefully you can start dismantling that when you have more experience and exposure. Hopefully this will stimulate recognition of one's own counterpart capacity to embrace and manage your own current life challenges. Also, by working within a diverse disability community, one can learn about specific strategies and resources, as well as a general coping attitude that could help people deal pragmatically and emotionally with future disability challenges when they emerge. Meeting interesting people like those I've highlighted today is a final benefit. Generosity is a spiritual discipline. We can now practice our act of giving either by placing your offering in the collection plate or by texting the word give to 504-608-7030. And during the time of collection, we are honored to have one of our own members, Sophia Rosamano, sing Summertime for us.
Yeah. All right. 1, 2, 3. Summer time and the mountains easy. The fish are jumping and the cotton is high. Oh, that is rich and your mama's good looking. So hush, little baby, don't you cry. All these mornings you gonna rise up singing, and you spread your wings, and you take to the sky. But till that morning, there's nothing can harm you with Daddy and Mommy standing by. So hush, little baby, don't you cry. All right. Okay.
Gifts to this community of faith are gratefully received. Let us acknowledge these gifts by reading together these words which are in your order of service. This offertory gift from the abundance of my life blesses me, our ministries, and the world. Please stand in body or spirit and join in speaking the words for our chalice extinguishing. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. My benediction is, each one of us is a worthy, interdependent, ever-changing person with needs to be fulfilled and contributions of time, talent, and spirit to give. That is why everyone deserves and benefits from an inclusive world where disability justice and human rights are embraced and effectively sustained. Let us be focused and joyful as we collaborate to achieve that liberated, accommodating world together. Best wishes for meaning and hopefulness in your personal and vocational lives. This is the end of our service. Thank you for joining us. Before proceeding to our time for refreshments and conversation with friends, new and old, all are invited to surround the piano to sing together our uplifting postlude, Climb Every Mountain, with the words that Jane has produced. They were on the screen as well. And for any of you who are interested, we can have an open discussion of the topic of today's service. If you're interested, grab some refreshments and join the dialogue in the front rows of chairs. I'll be here until the last person leaves the building to answer your questions or provide more information, etc. Just as a reminder, the live-streamed recording that Justin does for us each week will be archived and can be accessed through the Funo Facebook page. So, Amen and Namaste.
you know. Climb every mountain, ford every stream, follow every rainbow, till you find your dream, a dream that will mean all every day of your life, for as long as you live. Climb every mountain, ford every stream, follow every rainbow, till you find your dream. One more time. Climb every mountain, search high and low, follow every byway, every path you know. Climb every mountain, ford every stream, follow every rainbow, till you find your dream, a dream that will mean all the love you can give. Every day of your life, for as long as you live. Climb every mountain, ford every stream, follow every rainbow, till you find your dream. Thank you, James.
Jefferson always